Good evening, good evening, good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to Level Up Live on Worldschooling Wednesday, 6th of May 2020. Where in the world are you? That's the first thing we need to deal with. Let's get it out there. Where in the world you are? I'm coming at you from France, Central European Time, 10:10 p.m. Girls are in bed. Ellie's getting some Ellie time, but love to know where you are. What does lockdown look like for you? What does lockdown look like for you? Where in the world you are? Leave a comment in the chat. Let's talk about it. Love to hear about it. Let's get on to the housekeeping. If you are new to the show, you should see a Skype link down in, I believe it's on that side. How's this work? There we go. Down there, that's a live Skype link. You don't need a Skype account, but if you want to come on the show, just tap that ugly URL into your browser and let me know you want to come on and share your thoughts. Want to know what you're up to? It's a family-friendly show. If your kids are up, or if kids have just got up, if your kids are playing, or your kids haven't quite gone to bed yet, depending on where in the world you are. Yeah, what are your kids doing? What are you learning? What's new? Tell us your adventures. Share your adventures. So the link I put there is also in the live chat. I believe if you click on it in the live chat, it should just fire up. So you don't need a Skype account, and we can go straight on. So yeah, okay, let's. Just change camera angle there. Now I'm talking about that because that's partly why I am doing what I am doing. Is I am trying to level up with, actually this is a really good point. For the last couple of weeks, so this is show number 18, so I've gone live 18 days in a row, Monday to Friday, and when I first started, it was a very spontaneous decision, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, so you've got some sort of background. But the leveling up that I'm doing is actually practicing to get better using this live format, and I'm using some software called Ecamm Live, and it's enabling me to broadcast live on YouTube, and it's allowing me to sort of put those Skype things on the screen. It's the thing that allows me to change camera angles so that we can talk like this and you get a bit of a mix up. It's the thing that is allowing me to do where in the world are you and ask you to share where you are. And I can do things like, let's come back, actually let's just do that like that. I can do things like sound effects. So if you come on, I'll give you a big round of applause. And something I just got up today, and today is Worldschooling Wednesday. So Ecamm Live is the thing that is allowing me to do this, and there is more I can do. For example, we can overlay transparency. So if you're new to the show, we'd love some love. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and give us that thumbs up. And I promise you that I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to get better and better. So let me just talk about that. I'm going to come back to this camera and explain where Level Up Live came from. Let's just make sure we've got anything going on in the comments that I can see. Awesome. Want to make sure if anyone arrives, they let me know they're here. So Level Up Live came about as a result of a few serendipitous things, and you can read about them in the show description, and you can look back on previous episodes, especially the first dozen, where I was very much sort of finding my feet on showing up at the right time, showing up each time, getting my equipment to work. So I'm bouncing between these two cameras, and I'm trying to get better at that. So I'll give you an example. So now I'm talking to my Canon camera. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. So there is my Canon, sorry, there is the laptop, And yeah, so we're house sitting in rural France. So here we go. Here's my kitchen, and I'll say who we are is in just a minute. And I can't. My lead on this is very short, so can't do too much in the flexibility there. But so that is a Canon camera, and wow, so I'm looking down the lens of the Canon camera, and when I look over here, I'm looking at my MacBook Pro. And when I first started, I didn't know that how I could do that, and certainly how I could sort of easily swap to the camera, you know, sort of TV style, and cut it up. But yeah, it's all part of practicing. So you'll have observed when I first came on, I was like, well, how does the camera work? Couldn't get it to work. There was a few technical things to make it work. So the camera's actually, it's a better quality camera, and it's plugged in via the USB cable on the Canon, on the MacBook Pro, and it effectively acts as a webcam and is a better quality camera. Excuse me. But I guess I'm working backwards a little bit here. So I wanted to level up in getting better at live video. And that's what I've been saying as I introduced this show for the first sort of dozen or so nights. How did this show come about? What was I doing to level up? And it was about using the Ecamm Live software, which you can only use on Mac. But fantastic program, you know, I can do so much with it. And there's something else we can do as an example. So we can do website reviews. So I created a scene specifically for that. So here we can see I'm screen sharing, but I've designed the scene, shall we say. I'll just switch off that, and so yeah, I would take that off, and I'm going to take that off so I don't get in the way. But yeah, this is just me sort of setting things up, and there are different ways that I could do this, and this is actually what I want to talk about tonight, actually, so that works perfect. So we're going to come back to that later. I've got it inside a Worldschooling website reviews thing, but I'm just going to use that. So why don't I see if I can put this into context? As I say, tonight is Worldschooling Wednesday, or morning, or wherever you might be. But and I'm going to get to that probably around about 18 minutes into the show, maybe. So let me try and explain, well, first of all, who I am. So I am Colin Clapp from Parenting, Passports and Profits. And if you want to find out a little bit more about me and my family, you can read about us over there. We are a Worldschooling family. We have been location independent or without a permanent home since February 2017. And so we're into our 4th year. When we left, we had one small daughter. She was 3 and a bit. And midway through those 3 years, we added a second daughter to the mix, and we popped back to our home country of New Zealand to have the baby. But no sooner than we saw that she was healthy and had some enjoyable conversations with each other about continuing with the Worldschooling life, it was a no-brainer for both of us. And as soon as the baby was out, happy and healthy, she had a passport within weeks, and we left before she was 10 weeks old. So she was born in New Zealand, but she's only spent less than 10 weeks there, and that was at the beginning of 2019, and she's about 15 months old now. Excuse me, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Oh. Live video. So yeah, so if you want to read up about us, you can find out more there. If you want to find out a little bit more about Ellie, my partner, she's a health and fitness professional. She blogs on her own site over at elliemcguinness.com, and you can, Ellie's very passionate about holistic health. She's an experienced health professional, 20 plus years in the industry. So great blog site. Recently had a makeover. In fact, all our websites have, and you can go and check those out. We'd love any feedback on the website, which leads to so how I survive in this online world is I provide search engine optimization, keyword research, website reviews. We can also do things like email automation. If you want to find out a little bit about that, heading on over to onlinemarketingdoneforyou.com and read up on what we can do there. So, okay, so let's ditch those. Won't distract you with those. It is Worldschooling Wednesday. But how did the show come about? Just quick. Back to the housekeeping. So if you are new, remember you can come on the show. It's a drop-in show. It's like a radio show. I want you to come on. I want you to talk, and I want you to just share. Just be positive. Just be yourself. This show requires no preparation. It is simply about what you did today. What did you learn? How are you making the world a better place today than what it was yesterday? And so I keep digressing, but this leads to why the show exists. Why is it called Level Up Live, and why I want you to contribute? Because a few things came together, and you can be part of this. A friend of mine, Martin Abonge, I was listening to his podcast, I guess about a month or so ago, and during that podcast, he made a comment around using this COVID-19 time positively. And he was saying that if you come out the end of COVID-19 and you haven't upskilled or developed yourself in any way, and he wasn't necessarily saying about or how I interpreted or how I've chosen to interpret it, it was use this time, because this is the time when you can't really say you haven't got time. Now, I'm not talking about essential workers and those guys whose lives have been turned upside down in a completely different way. And the thing is, we still have the same time as we had before. We have 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We've always had that. The only difference is how we choose to use it. That's what separates human beings, how we choose to use our time. And what's going on now is just we've been dealt different time circumstances. And for many of us, that means extra time. So the challenge Martin was laying down was to use that time wisely, and don't get through this period with just saying that I didn't have time. And then you'll only have yourself to blame at the end of that period if your life hasn't moved on, but you find that others have, whether that's business people, friends, or whatever, because they've learned new things. You know, now's a great time. A lot of universities, a lot of online course providers are providing discounts. There's no reason why you can't make the most of upskilling and learning. Now, I didn't think specifically about what Martin said at the time, but as you can tell, that comment resonated with me. Then a week later, or about a week later, another event was that I was, through a mutual contact, I was introduced to a wonderful gentleman by the name of Trey Hitt, who is another world schooler, and he's currently resident in Mexico, locked down in Mexico. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a gulp. Talking of Mexico, remember, if you've just come on the show, please do tell us where in the world you are. Leave a comment in the chat and tell us what lockdown looks like for you. And if you want to come on and talk about it, we would love to have you. Children are welcome. So I was introduced to Trey. Trey and I hopped on a call because Trey was trying to breathe life into a small business mastermind in the We Are World Schoolers group. And I wanted to contribute. The time zones weren't matching up, but so we took the opportunity to just catch up one-to-one outside of anything he was trying to do, and just got to know each other a little bit. And during that conversation, he talked about how the group, he was trying to foster some accountability within the small business entrepreneurs inside the We Are World Schoolers Facebook group. And I love that, and because I actually used to wear that hat myself many years ago. I wore it for many years, and I wore it many years ago. So I don't do that, but yes, I did provide accountability in a professional capacity for a number of years. So we're certainly keen to contribute, and Trey and I just had a good old chat about how that might look, but we just said we'd just sleep on it to see how we could make it work across time zones, and to a degree, that's what's happened. Then, of course, COVID-19 really started to kick in, And that was a time when Ellie and I were sort of just reflecting that we wanted to make ourselves, you know, we're kind of holed up, we're holed up in rural France, but in our world, actually things are better than ever because, excuse me, things are better than ever because the our world schooling adventure has pretty much all been in Southeast Asia. Apart from our little excursion back to New Zealand to have our second baby, we have been in Southeast Asia the whole time. Now, we had planned to come to Europe sometime during 2020. We were in the Philippines at the beginning of the year, and we were debating whether to stay in the Philippines, try and see something else in Asia or Southeast Asia, or come to Europe. And we have done the house sitting semi-regularly during our adventures, and Ellie's always looking out and applying for them. And she saw one in France for this rural house there. And so she stepped forward and applied for it, and it started early March. And serendipitously, we got it. We didn't understand or know what was happening back then in terms of how things were going to escalate, who did. But after 3 years of being used to hot weather, Asian culture, which we absolutely loved. Southeast Asia was just an amazing world schooling adventure for us, and we felt so at home in that part of the world. But we just, our sense of adventure wanted to move something, and so we always wanted to come to Europe as our next continent and base ourselves in Europe for a few years. But the timing was just we feel like someone was looking out for us, because we were accepted for the house there. It all happened quite quickly, and suddenly we were in Europe with no warm clothes, getting used to completely different language, culture, everything a bit of a shock, but huge smile on our faces, and we were all totally embracing it. Then no sooner we got some warm clothes than we were and got our bearings. We were in a rural house there, so we're in the middle of nowhere. If we wasn't locked down, we'd be isolated anyway. There's only 4 houses in our hamlet. There's no village. It's about 4k away, 20k away to go and get groceries and stuff like that. But now we're locked down. I mean, the girls haven't been out for 5 or 6 weeks. So France is easing its restrictions next Monday. So we're looking forward to that. Excuse me. But as Ellie and I reflected on the state of play, while we felt blessed because I just alluded to where we are, we've got rolling countryside as far as the eye can see. We can go out in the fresh air there's woods, wildlife, a huge garden. And so if we'd been locked down in Asia, and we've got friends who are locked down in Asia, and you know, we lived in some apartments while we were there, and it's very, very well suited to apartment living, but the lockdown has meant that a lot of the amenities that are in the apartment complex are unavailable. And if we'd been locked down there with 2 small children in a small apartment, I'm not too sure how well we would have coped for an extended period. And here we are, we find ourselves in rural France, and we've never had so much space, and a huge house. And I pointed out that when I showed you this is a long room. Ellie can't believe her luck. She's got this huge kitchen, she's doing baking and, real sort of homeschooling stuff with a 6-year-old and the young one. I've made an impromptu playground outside. So we're feeling really, really blessed. But we were also feeling very compassionate about how we could contribute to this strange times, and we wanted to make ourselves available. So we offered up our calendar. A few people took that up, and we just provided a listening ear and a helping hand and some tips around health and fitness or the online world or location independence. But we felt we could do more. And so we were just sort of chatting that around, and nothing was coming out of that specifically. Then I started to see my own inspirations and mentors providing this sort of ask me anything type environment and platform. And I started all these conversations then suddenly started to dovetail that's what I could do, which leads to where I started the show about how I was leveling up, and that is I wanted to do more live video, and I had this account with Ecamm Live. I had the software and I wasn't using it, and we've created a lot of content in the past which requires editing and publishing on YouTube, and I just haven't. We're not publishers. We're not editors. We find that stuff tedious and time consuming, and we are way behind with that edited content on our YouTube channel. So we kind of binge produce. But live video is different because it doesn't require any editing. You know, it's just a case of being prepared and brave enough to press that go live button and get on out there. So I knew if I didn't start doing that, I wasn't going to get better. Which leads me to, I was laughing at something earlier because up until now, so I'm, as I think I've already said, this is show number 18. We've had guests come on from around the world, which incidentally tomorrow we have Di Manuel coming on from Canada. It's Thoughtful Thursday tomorrow, and Di is going to be talking about men's mental health. So I'm really excited. Di's like Ellie's a health and fitness professional. He's a thought leader in that space. He spent the last couple of years really working around this subject with men and their mental health, and so I'm really excited to have Di come on the show and share his thoughts as part of Thoughtful Thursday. So yeah, if you know anyone who wants a listening ear around that, be sure to tune in tomorrow. I digress slightly. So I want to create a live video, but up until literally today, I have been saying that how I have been leveling up is using this software, coming on, turning up each day, making mistakes. Which reminds me, I'm trying to make my mistakes publicly, but I'm trying to make the show more interesting. You know, I don't have a huge following or anything like that. You know, my own mentors and inspirations have got thousands and thousands of followers, and they can do their shows, and people are chatting. I'm starting out with nothing, making myself available, making myself vulnerable, making my mistakes because I want to level up, and I know if I get better, things will change. And some of my own mentors have said that your worst videos are your first videos. So, but you gotta do those first videos to get better. So for those of you watching, I hope you'll empathize and understand. And if you do, please, you know, a little bit of encouragement. Remember, get that like, subscribe to the channel, show us a bit of love, give me the enthusiasm, and give me feedback on how it can be improved. So last week I resurrected an idea that I had previously used, which is around putting a bit more structure to the topics, which is where the Worldschooling Wednesday. So on Mondays we have Mashup Monday, where we talk about online marketing, all those things that can help you be location independent. Tuesday is Tech Tuesday, and that's when we try and take a dive behind the scenes into any of the tools we're using to be location independent. So Monday and Tuesday can cross over a little bit, but if you give me some requests about what you're looking for, some tools that you may be using, please let us know what's working for you, how's it work, anything like that. It's open slather. Wednesday, Worldschooling Wednesday, and that's when we are creating a platform for people to talk about anything homeschooling, unschooling, worldschooling, anything to do with home education, raising children. It's all good. Thursday, Thoughtful Thursday. Like I said, we've got Di Manuel coming on tomorrow from dimanuel.com. He's beaming in from Canada. And then on Friday, what we like to do is flip it around and see if we can meet some of the location independent world schooling families from around the globe on Family Friday. So all evolution of how I'm trying to develop the show. But today I was in correspondence with a fellow world schooler, and her and I have done a bit of work together, and she was telling me how she was leveling up, not specifically to come on the show, although I've invited and encouraged her, but she was telling me about how she was developing some new skills, coincidentally around the topic of video editing. She's a graphic designer and has her own blog, and she's added to a sort of toolkit by providing video editing, and a little bit how I'm embracing this software. She's embracing video editing software, and I could tell just in the way she was talking to me how she was upskilling. But as she was asking me about the show, and we were just sort of back and forth, it dawned on me that I'm leveling up as to do live broadcasts, to use the software, but actually it's part of a much bigger picture, and it is about leveling up as a content creator. And so Ellie and I have we feel like we've been laying the groundwork to be able to create content. You know, we've got some pretty decent systems in place now around doing keyword research. We've given all of our websites a facelift that sort of effectively we've learned how to build websites, whereas 3 years ago we didn't know. We relied on our tech team, and I should put a caveat. I've never wanted to be a website developer. I don't consider myself a website developer, but what we did want to be able to do is have control over how our website performs, so that we can turn it into a money-making machine and something that convert. So we provide service and value, whether that's through blogging. We be of service to the world. We are global citizens. We contribute, but we need to obviously make sure that we can put a roof over our head, food on our plate, and provide for ourselves and our daughters, and live happily ever after, so to speak. And we don't have security of property and jobs anymore, so we need to make sure that what we're doing isn't just some fun hobby. It's our full-time gig. And so having a website that looks pretty is not what it's all about. It's having a website that provides value and service to the people who come to it, and it also acts as a tool for us to provide goods and services, and so the website needs to convert. And it's taken us probably 2 to 3 years to understand the back end of our websites and to take full control of their ownership, so that we know what we're doing. So if you go to any of our websites, I showed you earlier, any of these, you'll see a sort of you'll see a little bit of a constant theme on the home pages, and then if you go to the blogs, you'll see a similar thing. But even the functionality all around how you search, 404 pages, guest authors, we've all kind of got that on a standard platform now. But what I really like about this from an online marketing perspective is we can do conversions. We can do split testing on tactics that we're trying to use to convert. And we never had that sort of control before, but we do have now. Anyway, I digress slightly. It was about I'm using live video as a stepping stone to leveling up as a content creator, and that's the bigger picture, you know, so that because as content creators we can remain location independent. So Ellie does freelance writing, I do search engine optimization, keyword research, technical SEO. These are all skills that don't tie you to any one physical location, and that is what location independence is about, and that is how we're going to be able to remain world schoolers. So that is probably a very good segue into starting with the topic. Worldschooling Wednesday, welcome. It is Worldschooling Wednesday, and last week we talked about I was posed some questions by a fellow world schooler, and we did those on last Wednesday's show. But tonight I am going to tackle some further questions that she posed, and I'm going to share my screen using my actually I'm just going to do share screen and see if this works. I want to do okay, perfect. Right, I'm going to ditch the I'm not going to ditch that, but I am going to ditch that and that. We'll leave that. Okay. All right, and let's whack that up there. Okay, it is Worldschooling Wednesday. Last week we looked at those intro questions, what is Worldschooling? Why did you start Worldschooling? How has Worldschooling resolved your reasons for starting? What is the difference between homeschooling, unschooling and Worldschooling? And I tackled all of those last week live on the show. So I thought tonight we would get and take a look at some of these questions. I'm not going to go more than sort of 50 odd minutes. I certainly want to draw a line in the sand around about an hour. So I'm going to use these questions that has been posed to me by Karen from Worldschooling Central. So yeah, look up Worldschooling Central and hang out with Karen. Awesome lady, Australian lady, now living in Panama with her family, and very encouraging Worldschooling environment that she's created. So, can I world school if I only travel part-time? Well, last week I answered what is Worldschooling, and I said that what is Worldschooling to me was having a global perspective. And everyone's got their own interpretation, so it's not a dictionary definition of what's, you know, there's no association that says this is what the definition of Worldschooling is. It's wide open to interpretation. And funny enough, Karen has started collecting resources around this question. And when we listened to the first batch of answers, you know, it was amazing to hear the different answers that there were out there. But my take on it is it's having a global perspective, and we've always seen ourselves as global citizens. So I was originally born in the UK. I emigrated to New Zealand in my late 30s as a single person and became a citizen there, and I now call myself a New Zealander. New Zealand is where we call home, and Ellie is originally from there, and the girls were both born there. So we are a New Zealand family. But both Ellie and I have travelled before we met each other, and we travelled to different parts of the world and lived in different countries. And in my case, I'm an immigrant now, you know, to New Zealand, and very proud to be a New Zealander. And but we've always seen ourselves as global citizens. And I'm not going to bore you with how we became world schoolers. I tackled that last week, and you know you can read a bit more about that from our blog. But having a global perspective certainly supported how Ellie and I allowed ourselves to fall into this adventure, this journey, and roll with it, and fall in love with it to the point that we wanted to continue when the baby was born. So this is a long-winded way of answering, can I world school if I only travel part-time? Because in our eyes, travel doesn't even need to be part of being a world schooler. It is simply about having a global perspective. So even if you're not traveling at all, and many world schoolers hole up in second homes, and when I say second homes, I don't mean, you know, we're not talking rich and famous type second homes, but they might have a base in one country and a base in another country, and maybe they just have long-term Airbnb or whatever. Honestly, how you do it is wide open to interpretation, but maybe I'll get to that in a minute. But can I world school if I only travel part-time? Well, on the basis that if world schooling is having a global perspective, you don't even need to travel at all. It's simply about making sure that you're seeing other cultures, other nations in a positive light, and not letting borders of race and colour come between you. Empathy for different mindsets, empathy for different viewpoints, empathy for different religions. Even if you're not into any of them, just having empathy for those things, in my mind, makes you a world schooler, and means you can world school if you only travel part-time. So once you decide to start world schooling, what do you do next before you leave? Tidy up affairs as best you can. Now, when we started out, we was on the back of, let's say, a not too pleasant period of our lives. It had been a very dark period. We had a business go belly up. We lost a lot of money. We lost we were burned out and we lost our confidence, which is not good. But it doesn't make you failures and it doesn't make you bad people because these things happen to you. It's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and however dark it seems at the time, it's a chance to move through that. So we wanted to make sure that as our business collapsed around us and our life felt like it was falling apart, we wanted to make sure that we left with our heads held high, paid all our creditors, and just decided we'd just sort of draw a line through that chapter of our life and start all over again. So there was very much a period of tidying up loose ends, and that went on for months and months, pre-leaving and post-leaving. But other things we did specific was really to sort of downsize, to minimize. And as it's happened, we've done that twice now, because when we first left, we sort of got a one-way ticket away from our home in Christchurch up to the North Island, where we just bought ourselves some time. But we sold off a lot of what we owned and gave away a lot of what we owned. But there came a point when enough was enough. We were tired of trying to shred stuff and sell stuff, and we just took what we had and we managed to get it all into one container. We rented that for about $1,000 a year in New Zealand, locked it up, said our goodbyes to friends and family, and headed off on a one-way ticket to who knows what, and that's how it turned out. But when we went back to New Zealand, 18 months into the journey to have the baby, or prepare for having the baby, emotions aside, we were committed to going again. So when I say emotions aside, what I was talking about there is making sure that the baby was healthy. And if the baby was healthy, also making sure that Ellie's emotional well-being wasn't affected by hormones and she suddenly had a change of mind. And to a degree, she was more emotionally stable than me. But I wasn't going to be blasé about, what physically, mentally, emotionally a baby could do. And if Ellie felt like she wanted to stay near to her own family in New Zealand, then I would have adapted to that. By then we'd started to find our feet online, and we knew we could start all over again if that was the case. But to her credit, Ellie, before we went back to New Zealand, we were like, no, if everything is okay, we're carrying on, because we like this lifestyle. The less we have, the happier we seem to be. We're just finding our footsteps, and we want to continue. So what happened was, when we went back to New Zealand, first thing I did was go back down to Christchurch and pull a few possessions out of the house that we used to own that had been left with a friend, beeline back up to Gisborne, where Ellie and the girls were, and then a few days later went to our container. And over the next few months, we've sort of eventually pulled, it was like rounding up everything we still owned, which was the container possessions and the things we left behind in Christchurch, courtesy of some friends letting us have a bit of storage, and looking at it, and even then, by a lot of people's standards, we hardly had anything. We're not talking a huge container. I want to sort of say 3 meters by 2 meters by 1.5 meters, so sort of quite high, but it was stacked to the rafters, and there's all sorts of things in there, but not a huge amount of furniture. There was some furniture, but a lot of sort of household stuff, a lot of baby stuff, photos from our past, memories from our past, things like that. But when we opened the container and pulled everything up from Christchurch, we looked at it and went, what the hell are we still doing with this? And again, we went on to round 2 of go, sell, 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 give away, give away, give away. We did everything we could to get rid of it. We were absolutely determined that we were going to get rid of the container, and that's what we did. It took several months of constantly every sort of week or so I'd go to the container, take a bit more out, we'd find a way to dispose of it, then I'd go back and blah, blah, blah. Paperwork, we shredded everything, and that was mind-numbingly tedious, but I was determined to do it, and eventually we did it. And so we eventually let go of we let go of the container and gave away everything else. And then all we were left with then really was lots of personal mementos, so things like mainly photos and a few memoirs type things that, you know, were positive things that both Ellie and I didn't want to let go of. You know, in theory you could have, but neither of us wanted to let go of those things. We kind of felt like, because we didn't, certainly I did, because we don't have a permanent base, I wanted to, if we ever get to a situation where the girls want to know more about my life before they were born or before I met Ellie, I wanted to have something to show them, you know. So I can't take them to where I was brought up and those sorts of things at the moment. I have no desire to do any of that, but I certainly don't have any issue with showing them, photos and those sorts of things. And I think that will be really nice to do. I don't need to do it right now. They're not old enough, and so yeah. Anyway, but when we were tidying up, we pretty much got down all our possessions. So this is now as a family, all our possessions. We pretty much got them down to, I would describe it as a double bed laid on its side, and primarily that is just these personal mementos, and it's just a few other bits that we just run out of time to dispose of or get rid of, and rather than leave them with someone else taking up their space, it's like, oh, okay, we've been offered this storage space by a family member, and they will just park them here with their mementos. So now we feel extremely light. We travel with no paperwork. We've got no paperwork back home other than the absolute legal essentials around financial statements and any legal or tax information, but it's now down to like 2 or 3 A4 folders, whereas it was like 20, 30 of those, and now it's sort of down to 2 or 3, maybe 2 for Eddie, 2 for me, sort of thing. And we have no post coming into New Zealand. Like there may be one thing we legally have to have. Everything else we've got cloud-based, and the one thing that comes seems to come out annually and goes to Ellie's mum, and that's it. It's like there's no post coming. It feels amazing. So we travel with 2 check bags. They weigh about between 20 and 25 kilos each. 1 for Ellie, 1 for me, and 3 carry-ons, like day packs. This is my day pack, which is pretty much my mobile office. It isn't any old day pack. It is one I selected very carefully to be able to handle what I call my mobile office. And yeah, so every day I can literally, not right now because we're holed up and don't need to, but when we were in Asia, we were working in co-working spaces, and getting organised was an important part of how we lived. And so having a bag that I could pretty much just put on my shoulder, walk to a coffee shop, walk to a co-working space, or find a space in any Airbnb we were using, getting organised was really important. So this is a very long way. Yeah, this is what I would say you have to do before you start Worldschooling, is get organised. Get organised and minimise anything that is not adding to your life. Now, there's a question a bit, do you have to sell everything to start Worldschooling? I think I've already answered the second part of that, but no, you don't have to sell everything. If you want to keep it, and a lot of people do, put it into storage. It will all depend on your personal circumstances, you know, what resources you have available, either in terms of space, in terms of friends and family, in terms of access to storage, what assets you own, what form those assets exist in. Do you have to sell everything to start Worldschooling? Absolutely not. some people we've met, and this is where it gets exciting. Worldschoolers come in all shapes and sizes, and like I said, you don't even have to travel. So, in my opinion, and which is an opinion not shared by everyone. Some people would say, well, if you're worldschooling, you have to travel. But like I say, to me, it's about a global perspective, and if that means minimal travel or part-time travel or full-time travel, I like to think that's worldschooling. So people support themselves in a variety of different ways. And yes, some people have sold everything and voluntarily, and some people have done it involuntarily. But then there's other people who have remote jobs. So they literally just, they've got an employer back in their home country paying them good wage, but they just do it in the hours that suits them, and they've just put their possessions behind. And if that means they can pay their mortgage back in their home country or maintain their house or rentals, happy days. And so then there's others like us who have learned new skills to be location independent. We didn't have location independent skills when we left, and we've learned how to earn money online and be paid in different currencies. So some people fund the trip from savings. Like I say, some people fund it through selling their assets. Some people are only doing it for a short amount of time. We're now on an indefinite journey. It is our life, so it's not. Yeah, we have to develop income streams because we want to live like this, and in the foreseeable future, we actually now enjoy the adventure of moving around. Packing up and moving on to another destination and settling into another destination is just become very, very enjoyable. I'm not saying it doesn't have its stresses and strains. It has heaps of stresses and strains, but so does living back in one place. They're just different stresses and strains. So I should mention that we are slow travelers. We don't pack up every week or anything like that. Could not do that. There are some people who do that. So, and that does often tend to be families who think their trip's going to end. You know, they've either put aside X amount of months or years, and they know that they're going to go back to what they would do. They're going to go back to what they would deem as their previous life. But we don't. We leave and we try and find places where we can stay for an extended period of time. I'm talking sort of 3 months plus, and settle into local life and get to know the neighbours and those sorts of things. And you know, we've been away nearly over 3 years. We're into our 4th year. We haven't been to that many countries. We've lived in some of them for significant periods. We lived in Malaysia, in Penang for 10 months in an apartment. We then we lived in Bali, house sitting for a while in Indonesia. That was nearly 6 months. And we lived in Vietnam. We rented a house in Vietnam for 6 months. We had about a 4-month stay in Thailand, but we did move about a bit in Thailand. We didn't have sort of one permanent place, but we stayed in the one country. And in between, we visited many of the other Southeast Asian countries, but more through what's called visa runs. So like we lived in Malaysia for 10 months, but we were only allowed to stay 3 months at a time. So when you live like this, you do things like visa runs. So when your 90 days is up just beforehand, you take a short trip somewhere else and come back and get another 90 days. And it doesn't come with security. You know, it can backfire on you and you find yourself, you've got a rental apartment and you can't get into the country. But this is just the nature of this lifestyle. You don't do it for security. And so slow travel is an important part of how we world school. So okay, I at the risk of going over the hour, what were your top 3 questions, fears about world schooling before you started? Maybe that is where actually, no, I will answer that because I can answer that quite quickly. What were your top 3 questions? We didn't have any. Because of our circumstances prior to going on a world schooling journey, being burned out, losing our income streams, losing our house, losing our business, we needed a change of scenery. We knew we needed to remind ourselves how to be happy again, how to just connect with life again. And we talked very much at the time about how we just needed to be. And I want to, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do that, we mustn't take care of that. Stop making decisions. The only decision we made was to stop making decisions and actually just give ourselves a chance to be. Just no plans. Wake up with each other and just be, and just take the day as it comes and just be. And then we did this in Gisborne for a few months, and we didn't know anything about world schooling at that point. It was while we were there and just being that world schooling entered our life through reading a book and discovering digital nomads, location independence. And as we read that, it was like, there is a lifestyle that we could pursue and continue to buy ourselves time to recover, to get our confidence back, to learn new skills that we would need to move forward as a family. We were really conscious that we had to remain present for our girls and not burden them with what had happened to us. Or at the time, it was just our one daughter. And we wanted to make sure that she remained a happy, carefree little girl. And we felt by going to Southeast Asia with such a much lower cost of living, we could really, we actually could have a much better lifestyle for us. I'm not saying for anyone else, but for us, we could have a much better lifestyle at a lot less expense by being in Southeast Asia and buy ourselves the time and give our daughter to loving parents who are still happy, than fighting to get back on track in a place that we were just exhausted trying to be those people, and that's what happened. So I would say, in our case, it was the opposite. We were excited to just move to a new phase of our life, and we weren't looking to dot every I and cross every T. We just wanted a change of scenery and to experience new things and to travel as a family. As I say, Ellie and I had traveled in our single years, and we had not done much as a family. So it was an adventure, and it's remained an adventure that we've now turned into a lifestyle and a career, and long may that continue. So I think I hope that helps you on today's World Schooling Wednesday. I will revisit these questions next week, and yeah, get that out of the way. So yeah, hopefully you got something out of that. And if, like I say, if you are new to the channel, please give us a little bit of love. Don't want that. Let's get rid of all this screen stuff. Where are we here? Get rid of you. Yeah, remember, would love a little bit of a like and some feedback. Let us know how I can do better, what we can do better. Is there any particular content you would like to see? So yeah, like us, subscribe, all that stuff helps. I will get better with your feedback and questions I'm learning and things I'm studying, and the show will get better, the equipment will get better, the quality will get better, and that's how it works. And yeah, so if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments if the chat's closed after we end the broadcast, and I will, myself already, will make sure we get back to you. And remember, tomorrow, Thoughtful Thursday, Di Emanuel coming on from Canada, and we're going to discuss the subject of men's mental health. Okay, All right, it has been fun. I hope I see you next time. Wherever you are in the world, make sure you enjoy your morning, afternoon, or evening. And I'm off to do the washing up. Watch a video while I do it, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, take care now. Bye bye.